So I want to do this video as a follow-up to a comment that I got in a previous video I did in 2019. And thank you so much for leaving the comments. It's always good to see your different perspectives and stuff. And I was prefacing the video with intimacy. And the video is called When to Let Go of Your Long Distance Relationship. I will put it in the link or in the card or at the end card, whichever one. And somebody left a comment and they were very upset. And I can understand where that person's coming from because I used to have that notion as well. And I let in on a scenario like where soldiers are going away for 5 years at a time, for many years, and you don't see your significant other. Where there are people with low libidos, they can be completely faithful, but with people with high libidos or who really thrive off of direct intimacy, not being with your significant other for 5 years, in those situations, I can understand, not that I condone cheating at all, but I can understand why they would. In those situations where it's more understandable. If you're stationed away for 10 years, it's very unreasonable to ask someone to not have sex for 10 years because they have a wife back at home. Just saying, especially if their libido is higher. So, this person said, and just to let her comment on so she can have her voice seen as well. And I'm going to be responding to this because I think a lot of harm is done when people have this notion that human beings need to work like Disney princesses or princes. And that's where a lot of heartache and unrealistic expectations happen because people forget that humans are animals, that we are primates, and things don't work like cookie cutter scenarios all the time, not like we want them to in our head. Okay. So Irina wrote, your preface is very much faux. If you are emotionally attached and truly love your partner, you don't go having sex outside your relationship with other people for these carnal sexual needs. There are sex toys for that nowadays. If you have no emotional connection or heart ties to your boyfriend, girlfriend, or spouse, then perhaps one is more inclined, usually the guy, to sleep around. Furthermore, just because a girlfriend's fiance, wife, or boyfriend or husband doesn't have carnal, animalistic need to go out and have sex for the sake of having it, like a dog, that does not in any way equate to her or him having a low drive. For many people, myself included, my heart, love, and emotions are directly connected with sexual intimacy, and there is no intimacy happening if I'm not in love with someone, period. And I have a very healthy, high drive. This is about having personal dignity, self-respect for yourself, your body, and obviously for your girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, or spouse. Now, I understand exactly what you're saying, Irina. If I'm pronouncing your name wrong, I am so sorry. But I think it's Irina. You're right, and I feel the same way. I am exactly the same way. I am not being with someone in that manner if I don't have an attraction to them. However, everybody is unique. Everybody's drive and personality is different. I am an introvert. I'm not saying that introverts never cheat, but for me personally, because of my personality type, having been cheated on as well, I cannot form a connection with someone on that level if I don't love them. Could I just go out and do it? Sure. But my personality and my experiences prevent me from doing that. The love for the person prevents me from doing it. However, the temptations are still there. But I cannot expect that because I feel a certain way and I can do it despite me having a high drive as well, that everyone else is supposed to feel exactly the same way. I think it's very damaging. There are also other females I have known that have high drives or that have low drives, funny enough, that still go out and cheat on their partners. For whatever reason, they haven't seen them in a long time. Maybe they just do because they're not getting something out of the relationship, and men and women will go out. Is it right? Sure. But you can understand why that happens, and I think it's very damaging to, first of all, put the quotations on needs, because needing that intimacy, especially if you haven't seen someone in 5 to 10 years, that's not a in quotation situation. That is an actual situation. That's an actual state of being. Like, I'll give you an example. As an introvert, I need space. Like, I go mentally insane if I am around a lot of people and stimulus. I feel like I'm gonna die. Like, not die, that's a little bit exaggeration, but I really feel like I'm about to scream and have a mental break. My father, he's a complete opposite. He needs to be around people. If he is not around people, he gets very extremely depressed. I mean, like, full-on depression. I get depressed if I'm around people and I don't have a way to escape or be away. His need is to be socially active and to be social with people. That is his mental, psychological personality makeup. Just like if you have horses, or pack animals, can they stay by themselves? Of course. However, for them to thrive and be mentally healthy, they need to have other members of their species with them, or else they become depressed and dysfunctional and they don't thrive. There's another thing, another analogy I like to use. I like using analogies because sometimes it's easier to communicate to people what I mean by using analogies. There are some people that feed their dogs just vegetables or fruits and try to make them vegan. Now, dogs are omnivorous, but they are more so carnivores. If you give a dog a plate and you put avocado and lettuce on one end and you put meat on the other, and I've tried this with all my dogs, they always choose the meat. They will always favor the meat. That's because dogs prefer meat and berries and fruits, but meat is a huge source of their diet. I'm getting somewhere with this. They only eat other things as a supplement. Human beings are the other way around. We used to be just frutivores, or we eat plants and fruit, and we use meat as a supplement, just like rodents, like squirrels and other vegetarian animals will in a pinch eat meat to supplement when there is a lack of vegetation. Will they thrive off of eating meat? No, they don't, unless they adapt to that over a long period of time. As a matter of fact, I tried this very experiment not to hurt my gerbils. I didn't know any better at the time. I was breeding my gerbils, and I put a huge hawk in there just to see what would happen, because I'd given them pieces of meat before, and I was shocked that they ate it. And I was feeding them grain and gerbil food before. So I gave them meat, and they devoured it. And I was like, whoa, these little piranhas, all 30 of my gerbils cleaned that bone like there was nothing left. I could have wiped it and it's just completely dry like it's been sitting in the desert. So I kept giving them meat. So I'm like, this is awesome. Do you know what started to happen? They started getting sick. All their hair started falling out. That's because meat is supposed to be a supplement in times of need when there is not food around. Just because they can do it doesn't mean it's great for them. And regardless, they still had needs. The meat is the equivalent of a sex toy to them. It's great, it does the job, but it's not fulfilling. And it ends up being more destructive. Now, there's some people who can thrive off of that, human beings, but telling people that, oh, it's been 5 years and you haven't seen your husband or wife, you haven't even talked to them the way you want to talk to them, well, you should just stay faithful and never have sex ever again. It doesn't matter how much you want to. And all those people, you have that wife over there. It's too bad. And while you're right, because they made a commitment to each other, when you're in a marriage with someone or a relationship with someone, you have to ask yourself, what is that? What is a relationship? What's a marriage? A marriage is defined as a legally or formally recognized union of two people as partners in a personal relationship, and a partner is defined as a pair of people engaged together in the same activity, or a member of a married couple or an established married couple. I'm guessing this is not like the old Bible times or whatever, so people usually get married because they love each other and they want to raise their children together. It is a commitment that they have towards each other, and if it's a romantic marriage, and that's the purpose of getting married, the definition of a romantic relationship, whether it be marriage or not, is a mutual, ongoing, and voluntary interaction between two partners that is characterized by specific expressions of affection and intimacy. And I will say, I could be wrong, but if you have not seen somebody for 5 years, out of 10 years of your life, you probably only see that person like 5 times. It's not a marriage. It may be a marriage on paper, but it's not a relationship. You can't actively have a relationship with someone when you're away from them for 90% of the time. That's not realistic. And then put the unrealistic expectation on them, like, because you're staying faithful, that they should also, even though they don't see you for how many years you guys are away, that they should also stay faithful and feel exactly the same way you do and not do anything or act on their impulses. We are still animals, and you compared people to dogs, and I don't think that's fair, because my parents also had the same situation. My mom and dad weren't together for 8 years. I lived with my dad in our country, my mom lived in the States. And after a few years, when that person is no longer in your mind, or like, they say out of sight, out of mind, when that person's not in front of you, it's not a relationship. It doesn't matter that on paper you guys are married. You haven't seen your wife in 5 years. It's no longer a relationship. So my father ended up stepping out of the marriage, and he had a partner while he was there. To make matters worse, there wasn't any indication of whether or not his wife was even coming back or they were ever going to see each other again. We only have one life on this earth. It is unfair to ask someone else to waste their time and deny them intimacy, especially when there's no end in sight as to whether or not you guys are going to see each other again. My mother was very, very upset when she found out about this, of course. But we learned much later on, as a matter of fact, very recently, that she too stepped out on him, despite being hyper-religious and self-righteous. When I had told her that I didn't judge her or my father, her excuse was, no, we were both wrong, and he shouldn't have done it, and you shouldn't excuse me because it was wrong. But if you are, and I'm just saying in general, someone who is very hyper-religious, very righteous with themselves, you always try to do the right thing, you have super control, and you even stepped out. That must mean that within your human nature, you require intimacy. She had told me before she even admitted to this, because I already knew about it a long time ago, because kids pick up things, that she was lonely. And I'm sorry, 8 years is a huge chunk of a human being's life to ask them to never have intimacy because their wife or husband that you claim is in a relationship with them, or they claim is in a relationship with them, is overseas and you never know when you're going to see them again. It is not realistic. And that's why a lot of people end up hurt. So, sorry, but needs, I don't know why you put it in quotations, because our need to mate and to procreate is ingrained in our DNA. It is part of our biology. Even though you can actively say, I don't want kids, you still have those needs. And those needs aren't imaginary. They're very real for the majority of the population. And I think that people like you and me and several other people who have those high libidos and we can stay completely faithful, we're not the norm per se, because maybe due to our upbringing or our situations, it is more doable for us. However, if you put us in a situation long enough, maybe you're introverted too. Whoever knew, maybe if I was more extroverted and I was given more situations and my partner was away for many years, maybe it would be even more easy for me. Or what would happen, which is what happened with one of my relationships, I would start to justify, look, why I need to leave, why I need to cut off this relationship, because I probably will meet someone and I'm like, this person is right here, right now. This person is real to me. It's not a voice on the phone. It's not a picture on a screen. It's a person that I can feel. They're warm. They can actually protect me. I can take care of them. We can literally have each other's backs. And that's what human beings were built upon. We are social creatures. Even if you're not a super social person like me, you still require some level of intimacy. If you're someone that doesn't require intimacy and toys and inanimate objects are enough for you on that front, that's you. But that's not the majority of people. So my advice would be, well, I disagree to some extent with Irina in that, people do have needs. It's not just an air quotes thing. It actually is. I do agree that if you were in a commitment with someone, you should try your best to keep it. And if you cannot keep it, meaning if someone is going to be away for a long time, then you need to make that clear to the other person that this is not going to be a possibility. I understand military families are different. These people are going out and they're fighting, and these wives understand what they're getting into, and they know that they're going to be taken care of while the husband's away. If it's a marriage contract to form peace between countries with treaties, I can understand that. It's more of a business thing. As a matter of fact, I think marriage was a business construct at first. It was the act of marriage itself was to join two families together in peace. I may be wrong, but that's the history that I had gotten from it. The actual marriage, not just forming a life partner pair. But if we can keep in mind that what our weaknesses are and the realism of our biology, if we can keep that at the forefront of our mind, trying to understand each other, especially males and females who are, by the way, both susceptible to cheating. Females are hypergamous by nature. I'm not blaming them or anything because it is what it is. And males usually, I don't know the word for that, but they usually go after younger females who are virile and can have babies. That is something that is ingrained in our instinct and DNA. You can work around that. But being apart from each other for many years on end is not the way to do it. So don't get into a relationship if you know that the relationship is going to not work out for you, if you're not going to be there to actually grow with each other and help each other and to be intimate. Because what's going to happen is one of the parties is eventually going to feel like, I love this person and I'm not getting enough out of this. If you have the orientation where you are more attracted to someone who is knowledgeable, I think it told me sapiosexual or something, then that's fine. You never need to be intimate with the person. But you can't be someone with that orientation for someone who is needing to be intimate and then just brush them off and brush their feelings off and say, well, I can do it. They should be able to do it too because I do this. Not everybody works and functions the same way. And while people should be conscientious of their partner, you have to also be realistic. Too many people think that everything is like the Disney movies, the old Disney movies they used to show where everyone is in love with each other. There's no problems. They live happily ever after. There is no happily ever after. To get that, you have to work at it. It's not something that just happens automatically. You have to work at it every single day, especially when you're with someone who has a completely different personality. The love you have for that person, seeing that person every day, is a reason why you will look at them and say, you know what, I have to do this. I have to do this because this person is depending on me. I think long distance is easier for parents and their kids than it's easier for romantic partners. Because when parents have squirted out a child, especially the mother, she knows that her offspring's out there. It came from her. It's a part of her. She had some investment with them. The father also had some investment with raising the child. So they know who there's an extension of me out there that's actually tied to my actual blood. This is an extension of me the way that people's cell phones are an extension of them. When you don't have your cell phone, you feel like you're naked. You're like, where is it? I don't have it, which is really unhealthy. But that's kind of the same thing with kids. With a romantic partner, there are other romantic partners. You can't ever have other kids outside of your own gene pool, but you can have other romantic partners. It's how we're built up. So I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but I felt like it was important to reply to that comment because there's a lot of people who think that way. My mom included. And just a lot of them to the point where they become delusional into thinking that everything must be perfect and that this person is awful because how dare they start to fall in love with someone who they work with for, let's say, 90-something% of their lives and only see their wives at night. And like cops. There was a few cops I spoke with in a forum and they said, yeah, date us, don't marry us. A lot of them end up in divorce because for a lot of them, if you're with your partner, let's say your partner's a female or whoever it is you're attracted to, and you're with them for long hours and you only come at the end of the night when you're exhausted and see your actual partner for like 3 hours out of many days, what do you think's gonna happen? So it's just unrealistic. Put something in front of me that I'm tempted to mate with and just, that's the person you have more of a relationship in a marriage with the people that you see at work than you do with your actual partner. Does that make sense? And then you expect them not to cheat. It's like putting a cat in a room with a mouse and the cat can be tempted, and say, well, my owner doesn't want me to eat this mouse because he said this mouse belongs to him. It's a pet. I'm not allowed to eat it. But what's going to happen even if the cat doesn't eat it? The cat's going to want to eat it. The cat's going to forget that you're outside eventually, and all it's going to do is keep looking at the mouse. So even when it's with you outside, it's going to keep on thinking about the mouse in the room. So just for some perspective, I know that when we're like 5 years old and we're like in high school and stuff, it's easy to say those things, but the real world hits us like a bag of bricks. And I think we'd be happier if we start accepting reality a little bit more and understanding what human biology is all about and how the real world works. So we can navigate around that and be better, not just at being better partners, but at choosing better partners and understanding when a situation calls for you to not have a relationship and when it calls for you to have a relationship. I really hope this helps.